Most of us are terribly quiet during sex and really hold on to a lot in our relationship. We don't give ourselves permission to openly speak about things, and we can't change what we can't talk about. Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the Sex After Kids podcast. Today, we're talking about what the couples who are winning are doing right. Because, like we talk about every episode, so many of you are drowning in logistics. You are great parents, you are great co parents, you are fantastic roommates, but the lovers that you used to be feels like a distant memory. So, the couples who actually love their sex life, even with toddlers or teens, careers, and 15 years together, aren't just lucky, right? They don't have some magic sauce that you don't. They don't have a magic spark that you are missing. What they have is a system, a North Star. And in the next 15 minutes or so, I want to share 5 core habits of these couples, right? My goal isn't just to fix a problem for you, it's to give you a map back to a relationship that feels playful, connected, and deeply satisfying again. And I want you to make sure that you stick around for habit number 4 because it's the secret weapon for turning conflict into connection almost instantly. Habit number 1. What are these magical habits? They're probably not what you expect. Habit number 1 is radical curiosity. The first thing that happy couples do is that they never stop being students of each other, or they come back to it over and over and over. In most long-term relationships, we fall into the I already know you and everything about you and what your moves and what your looks and everything means. We assume that we know what our partner likes, what they're thinking, how they're going to react, and we're 10 steps ahead of them all of the time with our assumptions. Now, 2 things happen here. One, we develop sort of a shorthand for silent communication around sex that often starts to create pressure without us meaning to. So, an example, I was talking to some of my clients and they were saying, like, oh, when my partner rubs his thumb on my lower back, this has been the de facto signal for we're having sex tonight for the last however many years. And when my body automatically goes to that, even when we're trying to kind of step out of these silent codes, my partner rubbing his thumb on my back becomes pressure for me to have sex because that's been the silent request, the silent assumption, the silent demand. When we interrupt that pattern, we reduce pressure. 2, the second thing that happens here is that we assume that what used to work still works, right? So instead of keeping up with our partner's changing body, changing personality, changing biology, and of like our evolution as humans, then our evolution as a couple stagnates. Couples with great sex lives treat their partner like an evolving map. They ask questions like, what's a fantasy you've had lately? Or how has your relationship with your body changed this year? They don't assume that the person they married 10 years ago is the same person that they share a bed with today. They stay curious. They realize that intimacy isn't about finding the right person. It's about continuing to find the person that you are with. Probably 2 of the best pieces of marriage advice I ever got. One from my amazing energy work mentor, Ruth, who, I think she wrote us like a energy thing for my wedding. Anyways, she was like, you're going to have 17 marriages inside of your marriage. And if you remember that you are continually remarrying, rediscovering, recommitting to this person, you will have a way easier time. The second piece of advice that I got, or like perspective that I was offered, was from an old mentor of mine when I was working in like food systems and sustainability work. And I was asking him what the key to being married so long was. And he was like, I just love watching my wife become who she's becoming. I love watching her get interested in a new thing and dive into it. Like, I just love watching her journey, and I love being next to her on her journey. And that fucking blew my mind in terms of a perspective of a relationship where we're not 2 trees that melt together. We're 2 trees standing tall next to each other, sharing a root system, sharing sun, shading each other and protecting one another. And that's a very different way of thinking about your relationship and what it needs to sustain success. Habit number 2 is what I call the GPS feedback loop. So being curious is, of course, only half the battle, right? If you can't talk about what you discover, then you are stuck. And that's where habit number 2 comes in. The ability to give and receive feedback without it feeling like a performance review. And that's everything from like, hey, can we talk about how dishes are handled in our house to, hey, can we talk about how you are touching my clitoris? Most of us are terribly quiet during sex and really hold on to a lot in our relationship. We don't give ourselves permission to openly speak about things, and we can't change what we can't talk about. So when your go-to initiation move isn't landing anymore, or when that thing you used to do to my clit hurts instead of feels good, or when your penis doesn't stay rock hard like it used to, most of us default to festering in silence that does not feel good. Instead of getting brave, yes, getting brave, speaking up and finding solutions together. Think of it like a GPS, right? If you're driving and the GPS says turn left in 200 feet, you don't get offended. You don't think, wow, this GPS thinks I'm a terrible driver. You just take the direction because it knows some of the time which way to go. Couples who love their sex life talk about sex outside of the bedroom. They use I statements like, I love it when you do X, or it feels so good when you touch me like Y. And they have traded, and this is important, they have traded mind reading for clear directing. And it removes 90% of the anxiety. And I've got like 4 episodes on communication on YouTube. You can find the playlist for it if you want to catch those. Now we are curious. Now we are communicating. But great sex isn't just about perfect execution. It's about handling imperfection, aka real fucking life. And that's why the happiest couples master habit number 3, which I call having a high giggle factor. If sex feels like a high stakes exam, then you are going to fail, right? These couples know that sex can be messy and awkward, especially as we're getting older and our bodies are changing. Someone falls off the bed, the dog starts barking, a toddler has a nightmare at the wrong moment. And instead of it like ruining the mood and derailing the whole evening, they laugh, they reset, they arrive, and they land, right? Instead of devolving into this sucks, you suck, I suck. It's a let's figure this out together moment, right? So, an example here would be my partner and I were playing several weeks ago, and we were just having one of those days where like everything for me was feeling off. This hurt, that hurt, right? So, we paused, we took a deep breath. I suggested a position we hadn't really tried before, and we found something super fun that is now a go-to. And so instead of letting the whole moment, and in particular my brain gremlins that wanted to take over and do the I suck, you suck, we suck thing, we just paused. We took a deep breath. We tried something different and it worked out for us. It could have easily not worked out for us. And great couples that master the bedroom then just pause and go, you know what? Tonight is not the night. Something's not working here in our bodies. Let's have a naked cuddle and watch a show or do something that makes us giggle and move on. When we end that experience with positivity or emotional neutrality instead of that big emotional sting, our bodies start to learn to trust. Our nervous systems start to learn to trust that any encounter, whether it goes sideways or not, doesn't have to be high stakes. Therefore, it doesn't have to be so fucking scary. Couples that rock the bedroom treat the bedroom like a playground, aka that's why I call it naked fun. Okay, it is not a stage. Playfulness creates safety, and safety, of course, is the ultimate aphrodisiac. So, playfulness handles the funny imperfections, but what about the moments that genuinely hurt? And I've alluded to this already, but this is where probably the most important tip comes in, okay? And that is couples that are the masters of quick repair. Even the best couples have bad sex. They have nights where one person isn't into it or someone feels rejected. The difference is that they don't let that off night turn into an off month or, let's face it, an off 6 months, right? They acknowledge the miss and they bridge the gap immediately. So let's say the night started out okay, but ended with someone finishing quickly and things feeling a little rote and routine. Instead of letting it fester in awkward silence, okay, we've all been there, and then we roll over to the side and everyone's like, that was awkward, what do we do? Couples who know how to master this learn to look towards each other, name it without shame, without guilt, without blame, and hug it out. The biggest example I can offer here is that when me and my partner finally started to put together that sex during the luteal phase of the menstruation cycle, so that's right before your period, is just harder for me. So I started to notice that sex in that phase often caused a little bit more tenderness during penetration. It created a lot of I would be a lot more irritated, a lot more sensitive to sensation. And instead of not debriefing and not noticing that together and not speaking up and saying, hey, babe, I'm putting together that sex during my luteal is a little bit more tricky. When I don't do that, I just fester and get frustrated. And it's so easy to blame it on him instead. What I did is I named it. We discovered the pattern together and we figured out a solution. I've got couples who take a break during the luteal and they focus their energy on having great sex during the follicular phase when their bodies are excited to show up. For me, it's about knowing that sex during the luteal looks a little bit different. I might need a little bit more time to transition and warm up. I might need not intercourse or toys or something different to support my body to still have an orgasm, to still get naked, to still have fun with my partner. It just might look a little bit different. And that's actually really the culmination of all the skills that we've just talked about and how we can go from a night or a series of nights that feel off to learning together what actually fucking works so that we can keep showing up to the bedroom in a way that feels good for everybody. Last tip here, mastering repair is crucial, but an even better strategy is to create an environment where you need less repair in the first place. And that brings us to habit number 5, which is couples who know how to master this, protect their intimacy bubble. These couples understand that spontaneous desire is a myth for most long-term partners. Spontaneous desire meaning they don't wait for the mood to strike. They don't think they're just going to suddenly want to rip each other's clothes off. They build the house that the mood wants to live in. I love that metaphor. This means phones are away by a certain time. It means the bedroom is a sanctuary, protected from kid talk, from work talk, from scrolling mindlessly on phones next to each other. They make a conscious choice to say, the kids are okay, the house is okay, now let's focus on us, even if it's once a week, even if it's for 15 minutes, okay? They know how to prioritize their identity as humans and as a couple outside of their role as parents, even if it's in small moments. That small moment could literally be making out in front of your kids and grossing them out on purpose because it's so fun and delicious. So, if you are wondering where the spark went 10 years in, newsflash, my friends, we have got to nurture and create it. That takes actual skills. None of these 5 things require you to be a different person, but these are the skills of relating, and no one ever taught them to you, okay? The beautiful thing about skills is that they can be learned and they can be practiced. We've talked about the importance of curiosity and feedback today, but I know from working with hundreds of couples that the hard part is often just starting the conversation without it feeling cringy or awkward. In May, I've got a series of workshops coming up called Why Date Night is Killing Your Sex Life, how to use the pressure-free protocol to find connection and sex again after kids. I don't have all the details on the registration page quite live yet, but watch my email list and my Instagram for the first invite, and I will see you there if you want to dive deeper in how to create a pressure-free space to invite intimacy back into your marriage. Talk to you soon, my loves. Bye.